It's okay. It's okay. Okay. I just split one. Uh, okay, what's the song? What's the song? Russ.
You ready, Jen? Right on. Yes.
Go ahead. What is this? Ready. Unmute your mic.
Sorry. Good morning. This is Russ, WSTX 970 AM. Giving thanks for another opportunity, another day to be here on this side of the planet, this side of Earth, with so many things occurring and happening during this period of time. We only seek to talk about the things that we're going to do something about, or at best we know that someone else is doing. We are in the season of hypocrisy and lies, and shifting alliances and insincerities. Um, the pleasures of this game called politics, the institute of politics. We're not talking about regular human communication politics. We're talking about the institution of politics, where hmm, I guess the most honest person is going to come before you and still make promises they can't keep. In essence, telling you lies, and it is good for those who believe in the politics of voting and the way the system is structured. And yes, this is applies to those of you who listen and make believe you don't listen, and who are learning and causing havoc along the way. Um, with all the events that are occurring internationally, sometimes we have to focus on what's close, right? And what's close is what's at home. And that's all good. You need to know the mechanisms of how things affect you, and that's going to be the who, the what, the why, the where, and the hows. We have to know these things, right? But at the end of the day, believe it you or not, the most important things that you should be concerned with is what is your presence internationally, because it then speaks to who you are, irrespective of who might be looking, receiving, perceiving to control you, the narrative. And when we get to the point where we understand what that means, it also addresses what's happening on the local, s- I should say, the local playing field. We're not realizing how and just how certain agencies and governments operate. And many are in ignorance of that. They just don't have, they just don't know. And even those that come before you who says that they do know, and they, I can guarantee you, listening to certain conversations and things being said, that they don't fully grasp how these agencies actually work. And I don't care who's been before you to say that they have and they know XYZ. I can guarantee you, if they did, many of the path that they're taking right now, they would have rendered it useless or unnecessary. But when you don't know how these agencies operate and you're presuming and assuming things, we're always going to be um, two steps behind, because we're going to be relying on people that you believe know how these agencies functions, and they don't. Um, Recently, I guess everyone would know by now that HUD rescinded, removed the Virgin Islands from funding, uh, or at best, they froze the HUD participation with the territory. And you shouldn't be acting surprised, but you should be utterly and very alarmed at what that means. Simply because many of the individuals that you seem to think that knows things, they don't, to include members of government, all the agencies of government, the majority of them anyway. They don't know the responsibility and the reach of HUD, and they think they do, but they don't. I can guarantee that. And when a secretary of HUD puts you on their itinerary, part of their agenda, you should be considerate and professional and knowledgeable enough to know that you're not going to miss that as an opportunity and an appointment with an agency as serious and as important as HUD. And when the secretary came to visit HUD, we had someone who was representative of the people in office, the governor, who seems to think that that wasn't a big deal. So he was at a basketball event. And if you think that falls soft on a secretary of HUD making time to put you on the schedule and the person who is representing the colony isn't here, don't expect them to bow down to anything other than what the chain of command is going to allow them to do and not to. So don't be surprised that they're doing this right now, because they're doing it for two and three reasons. There is reasons why HUD is currently suspending the monetary arrangements that they have with the federal funding. And if we had people in the territory who was knowledgeable of what that funding looks like, you would realize that that is the reasons why our status, our current status, is being quietly challenged and trying to be sabotaged. But we have people in academia who wants to say that they're professor of this and professor of that when they don't know these things. I can guarantee you they don't know. And you're learning as you listen. They, the US government, the structure, the philosophy, the ideology, are not going to do anything other than what the ideology is set to produce. And when we are so lacking as to what the financial remedies are and what the financial status of the territory actually is, not what's being told to you by XYZ, but what the financial status of the territory actually is, you who are not privy of being able to go beyond the curtain that they put before you don't realize. And these people who are in office who wants to say that they're professor of this and they're that and they're constitutional, all this nonsense that they put before people, if they knew these things based on how they're acting and reacting, it would have been clear that they understood and know, but they don't. So while we, the colony, that the ideology of the United States and also the philosophy doesn't respect, when we don't know what we are, who we are, and what we're worth, and we're waiting for people to define and tell you who you are, this is what it looks like. Because financially, the United States is obligated to the territory to the tunes of trillions of dollars, not billions. And when we are so engaged into the philosophy and the ideology of the colonizer, to think that you neocolonialists, to think that you run, understood, and sitting in these seats, and you're the one who's going to be advocating, agitating, applying, and making sure that there's people are complying with what these laws and what these codes look like, and you assume the seat of the colonizer, you're neocolonialist. At best, your egos come into place where you can't even see who you are and what you're worth. So that being said, the spirit of 1733 hasn't never left the territory, but you would seem to think that it has, right? Based on a bunch of neocolonialists that speaks on these platforms and call themselves Pan-Africanists and all of this nonsense. It shows in their receipts what they do and what they say. And I am sure to collect them to make sure that they're not going to be hypocritical when that moment comes to show you what their position is on what our actual status is. I'm saying, and like I said, the amount of monies that is owed to the territory, the colony over the years, is in the trillions. And they know that. The small percentage, they know that. So much so that the territory does not need to be misled by quote unquote federal funding, because the money that they allocate to send for different emergencies, like under FEMA for emergency purposes and time to risk mitigation back and forth, that's actually monies owed the territory, monies that belong to the territory. But the way a colonizer works is that he will gladly have you believe that he's coming to your aid, loaning you money. And they know that the money that they're bringing and making available for you, where these delegates to the House of Representatives goes up to say she's agitating, advocating for monies, they know that that money belongs to the territory. I should say they. It's a small few of them that actually knows this. So much so that when you have neocolonialists who are thinking and acting the way the colonizer is expecting them to do, we have individuals who are going to not give any merit to what our real status is, simply because you can't change broken spirit. And broken spirit is who the enemy elects to put in places so that they can keep the condition going. The led, the misinformation, the constant indoctrination based over the years of controlling the narrative. And we're here now when HUD has pretty much frozen their interactions with the territory based on the inaction of those who are supposed to be competently representing the office. We are now faced with a very serious and critical decision, and you don't understand exactly what that means for the territory when HUD is taking the position that it's taken, right? And the grounds for receivership right now is being primed. While you neocolonialists walk around thinking that you have achieved things and you have you feel that you have, because many of you, or I should say many, a lot of you are walking around here making six figures. Some of you who are not making six figures, you're making enough. You've never made this kind of money before. You've never been in these positions before. You've never been exposed to movers and shakers back and forth. So you feel that you're accomplishing something. Very small minority when you look at the differences of who's in government benefiting from who's in government not benefiting from the rest of the people in the territory. So when this is happening right now, you have individuals who are still advocating and agitating, even though we're facing one of the most serious crises in the territory, is when HUD is refusing to give you monies or to participating in the structured systems that they're participating when it has to do with the monies that they've been has been forwarded to the territory. We're in such a big mess that even the delegate to the House of Representatives, when they make the claim that they're supposed to only uh, acquire the money, the funding, the necessary funding, agitate for it, and once the monies are received or had or allocated and distributed back and forth, their job is done. That's not true, people, because the delegate to the House of Representatives does have oversight for the monies that they're requesting from the Congress to be sent to the territory. So you have a responsibility to see to it that the monies that you have allocated for it is being spent and being moved to the territory for the purpose of what your agenda is in at the Hill, requesting for the aid, the necessary fundings, based practically, right? The delegate to the House of Representatives have oversight responsibilities and authority and opportunities to have oversight on how to as to how the money is coming into the territory. They would be familiar with that, and exactly where the money is. Where is it sitting? How is it? Why is it? They have oversight. They can actually inquire into these things. And when we have collective interest, these interagency department will also have an interest in finding out, well, how come monies are not moving? But we don't have that. We have that. That's not my job. We have the I looking out for myself. Um, and that's the kind of mentality that we have structured in the territory and very heavily in government. We have no interagencies responsibilities one to the next, and those responsibilities, interagencies responsibilities, do exist, but we don't use them. So now we're here, very crucial and critical point in time in the territory, when HUD is now it's frozen their involvement and they're looking for remedy, and they're agitating and sending. I wouldn't call it a threat, but they're making statements of investigations back and forth. The federal government and HUD have this information going on for donkey years. They just never acted. Now they're finding reasons to act on it. The accumulation of is what's making HUD move. Um, and the seriousness of who is going to affect. And it serves some of you right, because you want to believe that governments don't lie to you. You want to believe that those neo-colonialists that you see who are calling themselves senators and commissioners and everybody else in between are operating in the interest according to what the law prescribes, and it's not happening because we're living in a territory that's lawless. Very lawless society. And when we don't correct the fabric of the society, we're going to have all of this stuff that's occurring right now, where you have the politicians looking for the next item to bring quote unquote monies and revenues into the territory. And they're always doing that from the perspective of serving massa, serve the massa. They've learned of a particular issue. I'm not going to repeat it here because I realize that that's the reason why some of them are focusing on it. And that's why we need many of you to stop listening and start acting and start doing. Reach out because they're thinking that a people is never going to rise up and do something. They don't want you doing. When I say do, I mean doing the right things, agitating, speaking up, and communicating with your officials. And when you don't, you do it in group according to what the law prescribes. We're not doing these things. We have the melee contingency. People bringing things to you in the format of melee and gossip because they know you like you love melee and gossip. So they bring it to you on platforms with melee and gossip, and you suck it up because you like the gossip. You like to hear what the next news is back and forth, and then your reaction doesn't um, complement your interest in hearing because you would do a follow up based on your interest to make sure that you communicate to correct at best what's not being done. And the only way that's going to be done is by communicating and reaching out to people, not looking for talk session. We need to talk about this. That's yesterday. That's as old as civil rights. And talking about civil rights, when we don't understand and fully understand what jurisdiction is, what jurisdiction looks like, when we are kept in ignorance of things because those that we were depending on are also in ignorance of the things that they come before you speaking of in an authoritative voice and platforms that if they do these things, we're missing a lot. And the colonizer smiles because that's exactly the tool that the colonizers love to use: misinformation, fear, um, doubt, and not believing and knowing who you are. So right now, the reason why these things are can and are occurring is simply because of what our status is. And though we have a constitution that they're trying their best to sabotage, these bunch of neo-colonialists, the same individuals that's going to get up and tell you about 1733 and mention Queen full name, and they're going to tell you 1848 General Bordeaux and Martin King, and they're going to talk about Queen Matilda. They know all the queens. These are the very same people, these neo-colonialists, who are refusing not to be a colony, not to be colonized. They just want to make sure that things pretty much stay status quo as long as certain things change. But certain things cannot change when you're refusing what the Almighty God of righteousness has given you, which is your unalienable right to be free, to be always in a liberated spirit and to be liberated. That's what your right is. So when these things are being had and HUD is doing what they're doing, and a recent also to add to that is the NDAA that's being pushed forward right now, that bill. Uh, and they're questioning who, how, and where military presence and involvement is going to be had. And it's amazing how they are considering the fact we have so much things to cover, people, and I don't know if we have enough time, but to get clarity on just what how things are and how bad things are, you really need to get the correct perspective because these neo-colonialists at best is going to give you the perspective that the colonizer has designed for them. I don't care even if they're walking around with African name and dressing African garbs. They're at best neo-colonialists. And like our elder Kwame Nkrumah always said, our next battle is going to be with the neo-colonialists. And the neo-colonialists is full of pseudo Pan-African people. They walk around here with titles and with all kinds of nonsense, even in departments where they say they study. These are all the hypocrites, and the receipts are there to prove these things, right? But I go back into explaining to you that the monies that the feds have the territory believing is federal funding that they're giving you and loaning you and granting you. Those are actual monies owed and belonging to the territory of the Virgin Islands. And if you don't know, don't say otherwise and don't presume and don't assume that what I'm saying is not correct, because I know that if you did know these things, it's a simple agreement. So when this is occurring, it puts us in a very funny position because at the time when this bill is out, what is it, the National Defense Authorization Act, when that bill is being out, and part of that
You.
bill is for them trying to allocate trillions of dollars for the military. It's so how that's in it's similar to the amount of monies that they owe the territory. So when you're not using your monies, they're going to take your monies from you and give it to some and assign it to someone else. And it's so funny how HUD would be concerned about us not spending and not using that money. We can get to that. That's something kind of separate. But at the
You.
same time now, I'll come into the call in a second. The U.S. now is advocating, agitating for more monies militarily to include what they're going to do and how they're going to annex their uh, their technologies with Israel. But we'll come back to that. Thank you, caller, for calling.
Go ahead, caller. Go ahead, caller.
Hello, Russell?
I can hear you, caller.
Hey, Russell, what's up? I didn't even know you had a show.
Yeah, who's this?
Huh?
Hey, good spirit. Is this who I think it is?
Absolutely. Listen, I just need to make sure what's your criteria on this show. What do you talk about? I want to respect your forum. So what do you talk
Everything we have reasoned about. Nothing has much changed. Self-determination, the
about? So
Constitution.
you made mention about one individual. Did you get a chance to watch the debate with Stacey Classic and Roach and all of them?
Yeah, I glimpsed on some of it. I didn't get a chance to see the full thing, but yeah, I got some of it.
All right. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna send you a copy of her deposition. All right. I'm gonna send a copy of her
Okay.
deposition because it's gonna be vital that I'm gonna see if you can see what I could see, and then I'm gonna come back on here and we're gonna talk about it. All right.
Okay, good to hear you, Spirit.
No man, I
Wow,
do. All right. So
that's blessings.
I can send that documentation, and then you we can talk about it, and just stay strong out there. I see you in the trenches still, so stay strong. All right, later.
Yeah. Thank you. Trying to stay favored. The Almighty of righteousness take care of things. Yeah, people. Wow, that's I can't say much. Thank you, good spirit. Thank you, caller, for calling.
Russ, morning.
Morning, Mr. Nibs.
Hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. With regards to the situation with HUD withholding, not signing off for more federal dollars, some people somehow believe it's a joke. I listen to some of them giggling and carrying on and saying, well, we could get federal funds from other place. We could get this, we could get that, we could get that. The Virgin Islands, as I know it to be, as one who has dealt in federal funding for the Virgin Islands in a big way, from WAPA to housing to the Housing Authority. The record is very bad and solid. Somehow, our local leaders, and which have transcended to the lower echelon employees, that we could do what we want. We could set our own rules. That can't tell me what to do. I mean, I heard all kinds of things. When I work in housing and was given an additional assignment by Lieutenant Governor Brady, and I would follow through with Roy Lester Schneider, governor, to be liaison to the federal government for dollars for WAPA and housing, disaster preparedness and impact assessment and this type of thing. I mean, I caught hell with some of these folks trying to tell me that I think I work for the federal government. I take in the federal government side. And all I was trying to show them is that there are rules and regulations to be followed. And if we in the Virgin don't want to do that, then we simply leave the federal money with them. I mean, it didn't have to come to this, but it was long in coming. And as I said on a Canton show a few days ago, it's a bit yesterday, that the federal government is complicit.
Okay, Mr. Davis.
Huh? You said something?
No, I said
Hello?
make it come, bring it into where I'm coming from and where the status is.
Okay. The federal government is complicit in
Mr.
many
Nibs?
ways because they
Hello?
know what's going on and what has been going on. Of course, it's just what's up in this current administration where everyone and his brother and his sister is in some type of cabal and misusing, misappropriating federal and local funding willy-nilly and think that nothing could come of it. But there's a lot of problems we're going to be facing with, and since this has now happened with
Okay.
the Housing Finance Authority, the Fed are now more
Jen, do we have
serious
another?
talking
I'm
about,
here.
huh? Hello?
Yeah, keep going, Mr. Nibs. You're good.
Yeah, okay, I'll finish now. The Feds are now talking more seriously about placing WAPA in receivership. A simple question was asked of WAPA. Why have you continued to refuse technical help from the Rural Electrification Administration that could help you with the administration and or the engineering problems that WAPA has? And the Fed looking and they asked the governor, simply advocating a salary of $500,000 for the new executive director, how has that made WAPA better or worse?
Well, Mr. Nibs.
My God. Thank you very much.
All right. You're welcome. And Mr. Nibs, if you're still listening, again, with what you know, apply it. Right? It's going on a year and a half. I'm still here. People, you have to give thanks to the Almighty of righteousness during these times, because you see how favor given from the Almighty of righteousness comes to you when you need it and when support has to be there. It gives you goosebumps, but at the same time, it's affirmation of things. The ruin of a nation, people, begins in the home of its people. That's an old African adage, right? And to that, the most potent weapon in the hands of an oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. So if you're seeking to ruin a nation or prevent one from rising, you would make sure that you control the minds of its people. if you control the minds of the people, then obviously you're going to affect what the home looks like. And there goes the ruin of the nation. Now, how do you affect that? And how do you target it? By looking at and attacking the children. And this whole thing about sexual trafficking and sex trafficking and pedophilia is not anything new, and cannibalism isn't anything new, because when we're telling you guys about it, you want to fight back, you want to push back. Tell you about the vaccines, you want to fight, you want to push back. All these things, the medicinal purposes of cannabis, for its medicinal purpose, not for its medical agenda. All these things you push back, right? But it is already known that if the system doesn't come knocking on your door, you are at best a slave of the system. Because once you move yourself out of the systemic, the slavery, the design, capitalistic slavery that they have you designing, they'll come knocking on your door one way or next. And for those of you who say that you are, we would know that you haven't, because we haven't heard you mention, not that it hasn't occurred, but most likely it hasn't, or these you haven't got that knock. And it's the knock that the colonizer have whenever people are being or releasing themselves of this slave system, this capitalistic system. And remember, people, capitalism cannot exist without some form of slavery. That's a fact. Um, anyway, and now we're getting into the point where HUD is not participating, and they're at the same time the U.S. has this bill that the National Defense Act that they're here pushing around, asking for monies for their military agenda, and at the same time HUD is cutting funding here, um, or not cutting funding, but freezing the participation in the funding processes. We don't seem to understand how that affects your status and how they could do it because of, you see. But we already have a constitution that speaks and defends that. However, you have the neo-colonialists who are pushing it, and they're sitting down dressed in African garb, changing their names, African names back and forth at the university level, who's been agitating for this, for us to remain a colony, strong, hopefully so, what we have the receipts to prove it, right? And at the same time being hypocritical, trying to show the Pan-African community that they're so much of a idealist that they want to remove themselves from under Anglo-Saxon control. That's a fallacy, and it's a dangerous fallacy in these times, because you haven't been met with the energy that normalizes what you're supporting. Those of you in academia who are actually supporting, telling lies, and presenting misleading information when it comes to a people's right to self-determine, and what that looks like, what liberation looks like. And so far, another one's Bite the Dust. That's the song that's in my head. And many more gonna bite the dust, because, you know, it's a funny thing when you have honest hearts trying to do a good for a people, and a people who's been much marginalized, misled, misinformed, um, and not knowing collectively anyway who they really are, who we really are, because we are different people, same color skin, different people. Not all skin folks are our kin folks. Um, and they would like for us to believe otherwise. But all that being said, the nature of where we are right now, and the fact that we have people here in ignorance of what civil rights is and what registering to vote does. But we'll get to that. Caller, thank you for calling.
Hello?
Go ahead, Carla.
Good morning, caller. Thank you for calling.
Okay, good morning, Brother Russ. I just call in just to remind anyone if they pass in Villa Lorraine and Side Farm. I see the digital billboard saying justice for Shakira, and I see that tomorrow is the 16th anniversary of her death.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just say her death, most likely her mother. And I just want to say, is anyone passing by and take a close look at those two digital billboards?
yell out for me when you see it, justice for Shakira. That's what I've been doing all day, and I'm going to continue to do all day. Thank you so much, brothers.
Okay, thank you, caller, for reminding us of that. And yeah, in my head, I'm thinking it's the 25th is the anniversary of when they took her life, Shakira Gautier. Um, and there is going to be justice for Shakira, especially in this time, um, in this political time, this agenda where it's just the politicians, and there's a particular character and a personality that was choose to be a politician or to get into politics, sometimes for a good reason, but nonetheless. Thank you, caller, for calling.
No, it's off air.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So when we're so wrapped up in civil rights and we're so wrapped up in the voting registration, the system that was put in place by the colonizer, the neo-colonialists, labeled white, labeled European, labeled Caucasian, they're smiling because people honestly believe that that's what's creating the change that they need. All you're doing is creating the change that's necessary to keep the colonizing system operating, not to change your position of perpetual servitude. And because the colonizer left that seat for you to fill, all of a sudden you have arrived. You feel you're somebody important filling a seat that a colonizer designed for you to fill, enforcing laws that they also designed that they, by however, don't 80% of the time they don't abide by. Look at the territory, this lawless place being run. You have people who clearly those who are in these particular areas don't know what jurisdiction is. Some of them are attorneys. They don't know what jurisdiction is themselves. They honestly don't.
You have a
So
comment.
they're operating off of presumption and assumptions of
Yeah.
not knowing what actually is. Thank you, caller, for calling.
Hey, all right, but Russ, what's up?
Thank you for calling.
I was just listening. Yeah,
Hey,
I
all right,
was
how you doing?
listening to your show. The person who called earlier, I'm glad to see how your face lit up, and I'm glad to see that somebody, I guess from your past, called the show. Um, I'm glad what she said about the
That's good.
definition with the task it, because that should be interesting. Um, I was just trying to chime in on what you was talking about with the HUD situation and what you're saying about like we need to pay attention to why all of a sudden the secretary for HUD has pulled back the funds when we know since 2003 housing was in receivership. You know, so this is not new to the community or to the Virgin Islands. The question is why all of a sudden the secretary for HUD in the United States decide to do this. We're not paying attention to that. But I just want to say that it has nothing to do with just Brian's administration. It has a lot to do with other people involved also with how this thing went down. Okay, so I'll just call a little later. I'm gonna get all my facts straight, but I just want to let the people them know. Let's talk about that issue. Like, let's not name people or blame anyone because this thing is a major thing and it involves a lot of players in the Virgin Islands. Thank you.
Thank you, caller, and just what you're saying is true. Happened just with this administration. It's been ongoing for quite some time. Um, and people, I guess we are at the top of the hour, and we will be right back.
AM 970 WSTX, Christiansted, Fredericksted, and the Virgin Islands. Starting to feel the heat? Caribbean Cooling is your trusted oasis for all things air conditioning on St. Croix. With a forecast predicting a sizzling summer and an active hurricane season ahead, it's time to prepare. But don't wait until it's too late. At Caribbean Cooling, we've got you covered with top-notch AC brands like Breeze, Mitsubishi, Drain. Whether it's chilling at home or staying productive at work, our units will keep you cool through the hottest days and the stormiest nights. Caribbean Cooling is licensed and insured and offers maintenance for all air conditioners. When was the last time you had your air conditioner serviced or had it inspected? Please call to schedule your complimentary estimate today. Visit us today at our location in Peters Rest, right across from Cost You Less. When it comes to staying comfortable, we're the coolest choice in town. Caribbean Cooling. We make sure you keep cool. Call us today, 340-773-2126.
When facing a difficult diagnosis, staying close to home and loved ones matters most. That's why, right here on St. Thomas and St. Croix, you have access to expert cancer care without leaving the islands. St. Thomas and St. Croix Cancer Specialists, your trusted partners in compassionate care. We proudly treat everyone, Medicare, Medicaid, private insurance, or uninsured. No need to travel far. Our team includes triple board certified oncologist Dr. Ellie Del Jaco, plus new specialists Dr. Taha, Dr. Jagarov, and Dr. Joseph. We're committed to your well-being and conveniently located in the VI Medical Foundation building behind Schneider Regional Medical Center and in Orange Grove, Christiansted. Visit stxcancerspecialists.com. Call 340-776-1551 for St. Thomas and 340-772-1551 for St. Croix. Expert care.
We're going live in 4, 3, 2, 1. Ready.
Yeah, people. Yeah, people. It's good for you to be back. We had a caller that just called to remind us about this dedicated day for Shakira Gautier and coming up on the anniversary of her being deprived of her God-given right to live by some very demonic individuals. Anyway, I would like to dedicate this song to her mom, and who's been hit with the loss of only one and only daughter, and it's consumed her tremendously. But I'd like to play this song. Is actually a poem that she likes, and it's dedicated to the mother of Shakira Gautier.
Ven, te presto mis zapatos, vive lo que yo he vivido y dime si aún te molesta mi proceder. Ven, ponte mis zapatos, siéntete como me he sentido y entonces me cuentas si aún puedes ser tan cruel. Solo sabes una parte de la historia y juzgas desde lo que puedes ver. ¿Quieres tener el panorama completo? Ven, ponte mis zapatos, camina mi trayecto y luego dime si te duelen los pies. Ven, te presto mis zapatos para que camines la vereda de mi vida y tal vez puedas comprender. Ven, te presto mis zapatos, vive lo que yo he vivido y dime si aún.
Go ahead.
Okay, did it play out, Jen? Hello?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, people. So we don't get the right people with the right spirit in the right places. We're only going to be performing politics as usual. And those who have the personalities and the characters of being politics and politicians, they're out there. They could lie and tell they lie with a straight face. They can make promises they know they can't keep. They could do all these things and they don't care. And they can know that they're telling lies to each other, and they could still. This is how dangerous that's too sophisticated for me. So when you have all this atmosphere of again, in a political season where people are going to be advocating and agitating for a candidate, an aspirant, be it those who are incumbent and those who are seeking to replace them, you still have to question their character and their personality. Look for what their receipts are before they go into office, and those who are in there to remove them out. Because at best, we're not going to get anywhere with the fabric. Now, when everyone is concentrating on registering to vote, and they're hell bent on that being the reason and the only reasons why we can have things change, we are in a sad state because the majority of people who are going to be advocating and agitating for this are in ignorance of what that actually is. So again, here we go now where the neo-colonialist, all of you who performs and enjoys all the antics, all the rules and laws that the colonizer has pretty much implemented and structured, you want to pick it up and run your life 2000% by it. It's fine. The colonizer is smiling because at best you don't know any better. That's the reason why you advocate and agitate for it. And when the colonizer it designed it in a way where only certain people can control its outcome, believe it or not. So when people are agitating and advocating to have people registering to vote, they don't know how that affects their civil rights. Even you at the universities and your academians, professors, you don't know this. I know you don't. So listen in and take notes because you're going to try to capitalize and build on it. But I'm going to hold back enough until I'm sitting in front of you, bunch of hypocrites, you bunch of coons, sitting down with names invented, dressed in garbs, spewing hypocrisy and lies and treachery upon a people. I'm going to reserve it for you. Yeah, you like to sit behind names. You academians. That's why Hubert Harrison, we'll get to him to what he referenced and called you. Bunch of buffoons. So that being said, you have people now agitating and advocating because the only thing we're going to know, that's the system of the colonizer set up. That's why he's there. You're filling the seat now. So everybody's campaigning and we got to elect somebody in office so we can get them to do the right thing. And they're going to do what we need here as a people. You can't correct any structure in government if you don't if you don't correct who is filling the structure in government. And who's filling the structure in government is the people in the society, in the territory, and the fabric of the people in society. At best, the moral fibers are at best questionable, lost and gone. The lust for material items and the lust for flesh consumed you in various parts of the territory where it's now culture and tradition accepted by people. Look at the results. And we want to be advocating and agitating for the right to vote. The right to vote at best was not a right. You professors come to class. Civil rights is never a right. It is a privilege. It is at best an economic privilege. That's what civil rights is. It is not human right. Don't get it confused. Because you professors, you agitators, you educators, you performing in academia don't even know this yourself. And now you're going to change your language, of course. Because civil rights is an economical privilege. It is not a right. You want and you're believing that civil rights is a human right. No, it's not. And then to take that along, you're involved in a capitalistic system under a civil rights, economic right, and you don't know. So now you're arguing whether or not the 14th Amendment applied to you or don't apply to you. You're advocating and agitating to change the system because you think that the colonizer has authority and jurisdiction to tell you how and what to do, and you don't. But you're colonial minded, you're neo-colonialist, so you don't know any better. So those of us who do know better have to buck against you who don't know any better, who are in these positions to influence people just because of the position that you're in. Not and they assumed by the masses that you know what you're talking about when you don't know what you're talking about. And you come before people trying to throw these titles, professor this, doctor that, all this kind of nonsense, and you're in ignorance grossly in ignorance in many circumstances of what the facts are containing and considering a status of a people. So now HUD is pulling out. The United States is getting ready to turn over their military hardwares. I should say their their data and their electronics over and to combine themselves with Israel. And they're asking and agitating for monies to fill that agenda. And it's just so happened that when you know what the territory is owed by the United States of America, it's funny how they can agitate for that sum. And at best, there's people who, a very small minority of people who knows what the economic situation is with this extractive resource, this colony, and the United States, how the monies are moved, where they were moved, why were they seated here, why they were used here, why is it sitting in international banks, why is it funding certain infrastructure for certain cities in the U.S. And we don't know these things, but what we do know, we know that they could come forward and talk nonsense about Ronco over money and how it's supposed to be spent and distributed, and they know the whole history of over money. And the colonizer is smiling because they want to come and tell you how important the money is and who collects it and what they're entitled to back and forth. And you have not addressed the right you have to that under the status that they're trying to deny you. But again, here we go with all of these people, these bunch of neo-colonialists, who at best has been messing up the territory, leading us down the wrong path, having us now sit down and watch before your face when people are systematically trying to put the territory under receivership, and look at what the financial records are. Look at what the justification is going to be. Look at those of you who want to advocate because some of you think that you have arrived now because you're reaping some of the benefit afforded under this American flag, and not realizing how. And if you're going to be honest, because we rule by the Almighty of righteousness, so you don't fear telling people the truth. Who don't like it, don't like it. That's all. You have to be liberated in spirit to know that that's wrong, without apologies, without having to bring forward the Stockholm syndrome to try and justify your position that you're uh, enjoying under imperialism at best. And we're in the genesis right now of things being changed because America, who the true Americans right now, that they try to remove out of the textbook their identity when assimilation took place with the Anglo-Saxons that came violently into the territories. Their identity is now being brought forward to the forefront. So, what is it going to look like when people are advocating and agitating for a colonizer to repay them financially and otherwise for a wrong that they did to their ancestors? It's a whole mess of things, right? But to go back into the territory and not segue off of what I was talking about, if we don't use our intelligence with integrity, look around for the past 60 years where people are going to look at you and they're going to lie. You know they're lying. You're asking people to register to vote so that they can support and surrender. You know they're looking for something in return. You're not going to not take care of the people who supported you. And you're supporting them like the past administration, giving them work or their family some kind of work or incentive or something. This foolishness have to stop. And most likely you do not have the spirit to stop it because if one of the first things people will say, well, that's how they got theirs, so I'm not going, I'm going to get mine. Look around you of the things you want to talk about now. That's the same politics as usual, the same philosophy, the same characters and personalities that has the territory in the position that it's in. this hypocritical time and season where people are looking at each other, they're friending up, and they have alliances, and they're lying to each other while. Let's see how long that lie is going to hold up. That you have to perform these lies, disingenuous, but you think that you want to come before people to show a united front. That's fraud. And fraud can't possibly exist if it intends to do good. So there can't be any good intentions when fraud is being brought before the people because you're trying to show a united front that doesn't exist. It doesn't exist, not even on the spiritual level. But when that kind of deception is accepted, that's people, that's politicians who are comfortable with cutting each other's throats and stabbing each other in the back before they even get into office. So when you get into office, that's exactly what transpires, and people complain. But you can't complain about what the governor did, what any of the elected officials did or doing, when you yourself are doing the very same thing. And that's the struggle, right? The fact is that you're doing the very same thing that you're criticizing the elected officials of doing. It's just by chance and time that a lot of people haven't made the Epstein list because their behavior, the receipts prove that they too would have been in the Epstein list if not wrapped up in the Epstein confusion because of what their receipts prove you, what their character shows you, what the personalities that you people that they're probably going to be asking for votes for, you don't know. So how are we going to come out of it? In the time of truth, truth is a constant. It's not a temporary. And truth walks through all neighborhoods. It walks through the neighborhood of politics. It walks through the neighborhood of religion. And it walks through the neighborhood of philosophy. Truth walks, it just walks. And because it's truth, it finds itself walking through all those neighborhoods. And simple truth, very simple truth, sets a very good foundation. If you can't tell someone the truth in the beginning, you can't tell them in the end. And in this age of hypocrisy, lies, disingenuousness, where all of that element is, and it's funny how people trying to convince each other that they are representing something good, knowing that there's a basis of lie in between each other while they do it. This is what's corrupting the marginalized in the territory right now. Because the moral fiber of the people in the territory, in the community, in the society has not been checked. You don't want to get rid of certain things, don't expect government to change. Just don't. You can't walk up and wind up and say, "Oh, carnival is a time for us to stress relief." You got many ways you can do stress relief. It just doesn't have to be in that particular communal manner. And you're passing it along to the children. Who are the children? Our future. So now our children are not only being bombarded by what's put in place over the years by the colonizer, but it's also now because of the spirit that the individuals who are around them have. And they don't have a liberated spirit. So liberation still has to be pushed forward. You're talking about inalienable rights, rights that can't be sold. You're not talking about an alien from outer space, somebody who doesn't live in a country. It simply means a thing that can be sold. And when it's non-alienable, it can't be sold. And those are rights given to you and given to us by the Almighty of righteousness. I don't know what other God you're serving, but the one of righteousness is what I'm referring to. By many other names, the one of righteousness, right? So when we're failing, and this is not to be self-righteous or any political agenda or religious faith, it's just simple principles that every individual should live by. But we know that's not going to happen in this world, right? So we just are glad to have the favor and presence of certain spirits um, in the territory, anyway, at least, because at best, what we're seeing here coming from these individuals, the governor who's sitting in the seat is being criticized for his behavior, his lack of uh, and it's being done so because it's political time, right? The governor, and rightfully so, you have to question this individual. Look at his receipts, right? He's been doing everything possible to make sure that we're set up for going to receivership, and he thinks the funniest thing is that he thinks that all of this thing he's going to be able to enjoy. Don't work like that. You haven't earned that yet, right, Governor? But those of you who are criticizing them and who are criticizing even the delegate to the House of Representatives and the senators, many of these individuals check their personal life. Their personal life speaks to the very same thing that they're criticizing these individuals of doing. They're doing. They're experiencing it. They are protecting it. They're trying to hide it. They're trying to cover these things up. So you see that it's not the government seat. It's who goes into those seats. But who goes into the seat first have to have a moral fiber that would not allow these things to happen. So you can't expect to replace that energy with the same type of energy just being presented in a different manner and addressing certain things. It can't work. Sit down here and talk all you want. The governor produced a bill number 540 dash I think is 00. I can't remember. I can't remember right now, but it's the bill that he created for the ethics, the code of ethics, right? And when he did this in 2024, in January of 2025, when he signed this executive order, this bill on ethics, he would have already violated 80% of an ethical bill that he brought forward. This is what we're dealing with in the territory. Is the code of ethics that we're talking about here when you talk about who, quote unquote, is being indicted and who is being convicted. These are very minor things, and it's not like the feds didn't have all the information to go ahead and have addressed Ms. O'Neill or Mr. Richardson already. There's a reason why there was a delay. And it seemed to look like they needed more information. No, they didn't need more information. They had all the information. Perfect case in point. Where's the Charlemagne case being pushed back and delayed? Everyone else's case is being called up front to the extent where some people have been given lenient convictions. And when is it going to come to the governor's door? Because any of those who are complicit in those convictions leads to the governor. But again, you don't believe that your government lies to you. You don't believe that the government controls things to their benefit. You don't believe that the reason why the feds were acting a lot slower because the feds have agents who are just as complicit, and they had to get that out the way and get that straight and to figure out what the connection is in the territory, who's been participating and to what level and to what degree. You don't believe that, right? And then you have the status quo people who are just glad to fill master seats so that they can feel in coat and wearing hat and making all kinds of complimentary nonsense that doesn't produce the necessary environment for our children to excel. Our children are being under attack rather, and it's coming from the status quo, it's coming from their own parents, it's coming from the old system, because the children are our future. And if you want to affect someone's future, you go straight to the children. You marginalize the children every opportunity you have. From Head Start, where they're not giving them the necessary nutrition, even though monies are there for it, even though the violation of not using and feeding our children is a grave and serious violation of law, that our children in the Head Start system and in the school system are not being fed adequate, nutritious meals. It's supposed to by law. Money is already allotted away from any foolishness that you think the government is supposed to be asking feds for money. Money is already provided for them under the highest of law. Those of you know the law I'm talking about. And we still have conversation as to what our children in the school system are, especially our young brains and developing minds from the Head Start, first grade, elementary classes. How is it affecting those who have transitioned going into the junior high and high school system. How is that affecting our children? Because at best we're producing people who are still under the national average as far as literacy is concerned. And make mention, and may God favor her, um, Miss Diane Osborne, for her advocacy and her concentration in the area where the data was being received. Give her. I would like to recognize her, Miss Diane Osborne. God walk you in favor, because someone, and when you were here walking among us with us, you know who that person was trying to advocate to get your information to side with you. Very dangerous people in this territory, so that they can get the credit for the work that Diane Osborne was doing and she was producing. Very dangerous people. But we're going to get to them because it's funny how people, I don't know, it's going to take a while. And those of you who do know, reach out, because change cannot occur without reaching out, because then we become talkers ourselves. It's just the next avenue that would make some people uncomfortable. That's what change is like. We need to be able to reach out. Can't happen anywhere else. It's not going to happen. Yeah, people. So we're back again, and we have all the events that are occurring with the governor in his private life as well as his government life, with the senators as well, with the commissioners. We have all these occurrences, and people, you hear me say it all the time. When you hear indictments, don't pay any attention to it. Indictment means nothing in 2026. If conviction means nothing, then indictment surely doesn't. You could make sounds and you figure something is happening, something is going to happen, but what is and what are those indictments going to produce? And when they produce convictions, what do the convictions look like? What are the convictions producing? Because it's another flow along this corrupt colonial river, and at best it's not producing a change. You think it's producing change. It's sanctioning a particular type of behavior, but it's not correcting the change, because your change has to do with a spiritual change. Your mindset, who your spirit is. When you know you're liberated, when you know you're free, and you know it for a fact, you walk that, you talk that. When you don't know and you think that you say you do, you have reservations. And that's why you look at people are actually falling for what colonialism is in all its manifestations, in all its forms. Look at who's benefiting from it. Look at who's agitating. Look at who's promoting it. They're smiling because they got a seat in the government. They have an office in the government. They feel that they have arrived. They have arrived. Um, and that's all they're concerned with. And we are going to be in a position where you have to make a choice. Better must come, but you don't know what better looks like. If there's a suffering that has to go before the better comes, we don't know, right? But I say for the good and the prayer and the war and the praying warriors, give thanks, because maybe that's what's holding up that wall from falling. We're too corrupt in the territory, and prostitution is the name of the game. We have so much prostitutes in the territory. Those aspiring to be and those who are already there. Prostitutes, 2,000%. If there's one thing the VI territory is attracting and have, is prostitutes. And simply people prostitute being someone who has abandoned and voluntarily neglected their moral obligations and duties for personal gain and financial gain. That's what prostitute is. They do it for personal gain and financial gain. That's usually involved in some kind of monetary exchange and some kind of sexual exchange. So look at the territory and find out who has been on that past, those who are already in there and those who are aspirants who already been in that prostitution where it's either obligating your moral obligation for personal and monetary gain. And look at who's been, because these things, we're in election year. And truth, everyone sounded cute last year. Oh, 2025 is a year of truth. Okay, well, truth was spoken and truth was shared. But the reality of the impact of it is who shared it, with what intentions they shared it, and that tells you basically what the results are going to look like and what the results of speaking a truth is going to be. So we're going to speak some truth or reveal some truth in 2026, but because we're still early in the election year, you don't want these hypocrites and these parasites to have any leeway of getting out of what they're trying to represent by going in front of people with fraud, right? They're giving enough time to correct and to not participate and to withhold themselves from making certain type of statement and making certain types of claim, because I am guaranteeing you that it's going to come back to bite you, because you're going to do this with enough time. People who want to criticize those who are in elected seats in the governments right now, who are doing the very same thing. The very same thing. I know situations where the governor who's being criticized for his personal lifestyle and back and forth and things. I know people right now who are doing the very same thing, who are seeking to get in the same position he's in, doing the very same thing. How does that change things when we refuse to change our moral? See, that's the battle right there. You see, nobody's telling you to be non self-righteous and to join a particular religion or faith. Just be honest. If you know what that looks like. Today we live and tomorrow you die. So at best, and people, I began to realize that truth is a relative thing, as well as lies is a relative thing. All depends on who perceive what as being true. Um, but again, we are in an election year. We're in the season of lies, hypocrisy. You see people forming alliances, they're forming groups, they're agitating, they're advocating, they're supporting candidates. This is what the candidate's theme and slogan is, back and forth. The candidate is telling them, and they're telling the candidate that they're going to support. The candidate is telling them to their best of their knowledge what they're going to deliver, knowing that they can't. In the deepest recesses of their heart, they know they can't. They're looking at people who are coming up and asking them for favor before they're getting, and they're promising people that they're going to give it and they're going to look. And this is what this atmosphere looks like. And in the meantime, the colonizer is smiling because people who seem to agitate for voting and registering to vote are still sailing and sleeping on yesterday's slave ship, because this is all they try to justify it from presumptions and assumptions of what registering to vote is, as opposed to what the results are based on what's involved. That same people would advocate and agitate for civil rights, willing to lose their life, because civil rights, according to them, and registering to vote is what caused what some of our ancestors died for. This is still a foolishness that people are saying, that our ancestors that died for the right to vote. This is how misled we are of what the materials and what the actual truths are. Yes, we had ancestors who died and wasn't given the privilege to vote, and was being treated and being still looked at as second class citizens. under the segregative acts that they were forced to live under. So they agitated for a civil right, a right to participate in the government and in the society equally to those who were there, and it had nothing to do with your human rights. So when they were agitating for the civil rights, trying to get in, and civil rights people is not a right; it is a privilege. But people don't know that. You see, and the best of them was now when they might look to change their tongue that they're hearing it, right? But civil rights people is a privilege, and it is an economic privilege. That's what it actually is. The word doesn't reflect what the status is in law. So, not because they use the word right, it means that it is not a privilege. It is just named that way. It is not human rights, it is civil privileges. And the civil privileges were basically on economic privilege. They didn't move for human privilege. It was just based on purely economical. And that's why we have to talk about the 14th Amendment, what it applies to, and the 13th, and all various parts of the Constitution. People think a territory is protected under, and a territory is not protected under that. That's why they could do anything that they want to with anything in the territory, because as far as they're concerned, there's two things that the territory doesn't recognize, is, or I should say, the neo-colonialist and those Sambos and Coons in the territory who want to agitate and keep this colonial status. They don't have no clue as to what that represents. And when we don't recognize, because we need time to learn these things and a platform to do so, where it wouldn't be a platform like this where you have the enemy listening, they learn something, they go and they do the search and research for themselves, and then they come back before you and attach a lie to it and make you believe that this is the position they always had. Gladly, I keep receipts. So when we are agitating for civil rights, which is really a privilege, they're showing you that it's a privilege. They've taken away, they've adjusted, they've gutted out even the Voting Rights Act, right? In certain areas, jurisdiction, and places. And if they could do it there, that applies to the whole Voting Rights Act, what they can do and cannot do with the privilege to vote and participate in the civil societies produced under the United States of America. And the civil societies agreed upon under the United States of America, where they are a republic, agreed to, right, to be governed by laws. They themselves are violating the very laws that created this quote unquote republic. So does the republic stand? But again, we're not taught civics in school. So even if they taught civics from a colonial perspective, we would still have the basics of what and how the government is structured and how it's run, so that when we discuss voters registration and what civil rights is and how it affects the territory, we would have a clearer have clarity in what is being said. We have people again in the territory that loves to presume, love to assume things, and these are adults now, and they'll be adamant about it. They're protected with their life, this based on presumption and based on assumptions on things. And in this climate of the political juxtaposition where disingenuousness is one of the foundation of this time, is some people love this. This is a sporting event for some people. They love this time of year when they can come before and talk something about somebody or try to ask someone for vote or to try to, slogans going up. They love this time of the year. Some people salivate and wait for this time of the year. It makes them feel good. But they don't take that same agenda now and apply it to being liberated. And they do so under the concept that what they're doing are giving them, equal and civil rights. Well, you got civil rights now, so what are you complaining about? If you have civil rights, you should not be complaining, right? And again, we're going to get to where I guess we're going to recognize and spend some time so we can cover Mr. King, where he was in the last weeks, in the last days of his life, regretting the fact that he was a poster child of civil rights, realizing after he had gotten that far what exactly civil rights was. And they had a lot of information then to have known what it was suggesting before he had gotten to the point where he was actually regretting bringing people under civil rights as opposed to advocating for human rights. But we're going to get to that because a lot of people like to call Dr. King's name out now and talk all kinds of stuff. There's conspiracy theories back and forth, but let's speak to the left of where he was and what he produced. Because people, the one thing controlling governments don't want the people to do is just that, to do. And when I say do the right things, to be learned, to get the proper information. It takes a while because then you buck up against a neo-colonialist who wants to push the learning agenda that the colonizers and the format that the colonizers have left for him, and that's what they know. That's what they feel proud about. So they will defend that at all costs. So some of them have even progressed even to go into higher areas in academia, and they still don't know what civil rights actually produced, and they still don't know what voter registration actually does. And when you blind the people into not knowing what that actually is, that's the reason why uh, you have individuals unlawfully participating in a sixth constitutional convention, all lawful from its inception. From the time the bill was presented from General Thoreau by General Thoreau, and by the way, General Thoreau is the same individual who was advocating the bill to give the government this raise, all these things. And I'm not picking on the senator or the former senator, other than the position that she's been holding, fact verifiably so, right? So we're in a time now where
Go ahead, caller.
go ahead, Claudia. Thank you for calling.
Um, I'm calling you on behalf of the Gautier family. It has been 16 years since the family and friends lost Shakira Gautier. Yet for those who love her, the pain remains as real as ever. Losing Shakira broke the heart of her family and community, taking an undeniable heavy toll on her mother, Mrs. Gautier's health and well-being. While times continue to move forward, her family and friends' search for the truth has never stopped. Her family and friends deserve answers. They deserve to know what really happened to Shakira. Someone out there holds the missing piece of this story. If you know anything, no matter how small or insignificant it may seem, her family pleads with you to speak up. Help us bring peace to a grieving family and to a long overdue justice for Shakira as we celebrate her 16 years that she left this earth. May her soul rest in peace. Thank you.
I thank you, caller, for reminding us and justice for Shakira. And yeah, the individuals I want to thank those police officers and those who weren't police officers who brought up little nuggets of information, um, and that's been appreciated for the nuggets of information they give relative to the events around her case. In this political season, her case will be noticed, and I'm trying to hold back on the merits of it simply because where we are right now, we're only getting close to the month of August. It's given enough time for those who were contributing the little nuggets and promise to bring more to bring the nuggets in because they don't believe that certain information relative to her case is already had, right? Um, and those who are involved as well, who think that taking somebody's life is something that you can just forget about and walk away and life as usual goes nice for those of you who were involved in the murder of Shakira Gautier, because that's what it is. There's no other word to describe it other than that. And those of you who were complicit, to show you what how corrupt we can be while trying to keep serious faces otherwise, and it shows you who we are in the territory. So I don't need anyone walking around me playing that they're acting as if they're up full and right when they're anything but that. And yes, Shakira Gautier lost her life because she had integrity and she was covering evidence that they wanted her to bury. But I wouldn't get into it. It's a little too early right now. We're going to get into the full swing of things. And again, to thank those officers who still on the job and those who retired. I thank those of you who added and shared important nuggets so that everything is being triangulated so that when it's presented that there isn't any denial of what took place in and around the evidence room. And when we as a society that's already normalized what people do to people in the territory and how some people have gotten um, job offers and career offers and monies, and there isn't any honor among thieves and murderers. Know that. So that when people realized they knew along, but it's heavy on their heart and their mind and their conscience has come and given the nuggets that they have. People, listen to me carefully. We're going to find out what integrity looks like based on who has interest in representing us here in the territory and what offices they are seeking. Yeah, if integrity is to be brought forward, let's bring the receipts forward and we'll piecemeal the receipts because this is an agenda. This is a case that they figure is gone cold. It's not gone cold. Shakira Gautier's case is not gone cold, people. It's funny how the people who are key involved right now are making themselves very visible before you. Very visible before you. They have aspirations and intent. We are going to see what the aspirations and intent is going to drive them or going to carry them, given the fact that Shakira Gautier lost her life in the evidence room, the St. Croix Police Department. Who was there with her? Who was around that time? Who was responsible for assignment and non assignment? Who were involved in the investigative process? What was done? What evidence was withheld, destroyed? Think that they destroyed it anyway. It's funny I could say this, right? Because they can't correct this. Someone who was involved in the case just got up and did a whole 6 hour venting, and while he was venting, implicated those who knew of the circumstances of her death and those who participated while implicating himself. So the evidence is there, right? And 16 years pass, and some people have gotten comfortable in life has gone on for them as usual. They've been eating food. They eat the best shrimp, the filet mignon. They're eating conch, they're eating lobster. Life is good. They're experiencing material as well as hmm, that issue that we have in the territory, the lust for flesh and the material money. They're enjoying life as usual. They're making names and titles for themselves. 16 years has gone by, and they think that that's how life operates. That you remove and take a human's life, and that's the end of it. Move on. Tomorrow we're going to forget about the process, why it occurred, and who that person who was a victim of. And it doesn't work like that. 2026, truths are spoken, not revealed, right? Now, one thing that they don't want us to do is to be doing and doing the right thing. But as far as Shakira Deltier is concerned, our case is not forgotten. We can't make an issue of the case here, but we can speak to the merits of it once we get closer for those who are involved. And again, I want to thank all the police officers who have contributed and given us nuggets on what they know, and individuals who weren't, but who are familiar and close to it. We give thanks for that. This is justice for Shakira. For Shakira. It could be any of our family members who decided they're going to do the right thing and they're not going to participate in fraud and crime, who may have lost their life just for doing the right thing and who are involved in it. But you don't let something go unresolved just because you think you're a part of the status quo and you run things. You think that you control the judiciary, the judicial system, the lawlessness. You're participating in these things. But her case is going to be heard, and it's not forgotten. Can't speak to the merits of it right now because this is not the platform to fully do it. But yeah, look at the individuals who are seeking to represent you in office right now, in the highest office in the territory. They're all complicit in this thing. They're all complicit in these things. We have a question of who you want to get in this and what good are they going to do and how is it going to benefit the territory. How is it going to benefit the territory when we have not done anything different to bring about the results that we need other than complaining about the things that you need? If Master came and fixed WAPA, you wouldn't have a problem. You're good. If you didn't have to pay anything, you were getting reliable power and water, the best of it all, you would have no complaints. It would be good enough for you if they gave you that. If they gave you full functioning hospitals, equipped like they're supposed to in 2026, you Negroes will still be okay with that. Because you've not understood what liberation looks like. And that's the problem we have with the neocolonialists now, those of you who are in academia, saying you're a doctor this and doctor that and want to call all of this, and they know nothing other than what they're indoctrinated to bring before people. And they know how to do it very well. And the receipts are there. So don't think that your names are not going to be called. Yeah, your names are going to be called with its appropriate receipts. Because at best, the colonizer have used you, the department at the university and in academia, period, to push back against colonialism, the eradication of colonialism. And they know how to do it with you bunch of neocolonialists. You pseudo Pan-Africanists who wants to change name and come with weird garbs and represent and speak as if you do know these things when the receipts show otherwise, right? But that's a struggle that some of us are going to have to deal with coming forward. And the fact that you have a body who was convened unlawfully right in front of your face. It's lawless. The whole processing is lawless, and you're still conducting yourself lawlessly, knowing that it's lawless. It hasn't been checked. So it's to show you how incompetent and how lawless this place is. You have lawyers. I'm sorry. Let me make the correction. You have attorneys sitting on the Sixth Constitutional Convention, and if they knew law, and if they were honest people, competently so, they would be recusing themselves off of it because they would know that it's unlawful. Yeah, the attorneys who are sitting there now, they have no excuse. Look at how it's being populated and look at who these people are. Look at their receipt. Look at their lifestyle. Yeah, those who are in the six, look at their lifestyle. Because it's not by chance that they are the type that would be selected to try and bring a misleading document to represent the interests of a people and to bring the confusing about what the status actually is and who's supposed to participate and when that looks like. because the colonizer, the imperialist will do everything and has done much of what they could to make sure that the neo-colonialists will always fight their agenda, no matter what they look like. So they could be family members, people you know in the territory. You know, there are people in the territory anyway, the same skin color, but we're looking at your spirit, and the spirit speaks. And when we fail as a people to do the right things, which means to learn, to be learned, and to move accordingly, we're going to be here. We're going to see people all now. Everybody going to have their slogan up, and they got a sign, and they got the tent where they're sitting down, and they're pushing their paraphernalia, and they're agitating because we're going to have a candidate. What's the purpose of the candidate? You want to put your candidate in there because you subscribe to their philosophy or their ideologies, and you want to do this, and and they're getting together, and yes, they're combining, and there is movement. There's some kind of a partying forming, and there's a unity. All that's being done under fraud and fallacy and lacking proper information. And that's why we're going to keep on smiling in the territory. The colonizers are going to keep on smiling because it's going to take us a little longer to arrive at what liberty really is in absence of imperialist and colonial type structured governments. Time is upon us already, people. Remember that we are only as honest as the Almighty God of righteousness knows us to be, and nothing else. And in time of hypocrisy, where politics is taking place, where fraud and deception is at best, friends are going to become enemies, and enemies are going to become friends. It's going to be on simple truths. Just know that. Okay? And this time, we know that we're not going to forget about Shakira Gautier. Tomorrow is going to mark a very sad day and have fun and laughter because she was violently murdered. Her life was taken. You would have to know because you'd have to see what that would have looked like. And people, uh, don't forget that the ruin of a nation always begins in the home of a people. And in order for you to do that, you have to affect the family unit. So that's why the colonizers happy, and those neocolonialists, the future, which is our youth and our children. So everything we should be doing, we should always be doing with our children in mind and making sure that they are number one. People, again, as our ancestors, I would like to remind you never to surrender your rights or never to be purchased a right to be given or to purchase a privilege. Okay. And our ancestors would always ask us and tell us to walk good in favor. See you guys next week.
Stand up for the law. Stand up for decency. Stand up for compassion.